the whole idea for this is that it wants to generate some conversation around sexualized violence in the community, not just what happens, but our attitudes towards it. And so I'm really hoping that we'll have some workshops to explore that with the groups of people who actually work with survivors of sexualized violence, or with people who actually are impacted, like family members and all, because you never know how family are impacted by one person being so horribly hurt, and then how do they deal with it? How do they figure it out?
So these are my pieces. This is the first one here, which is titled after the repeating line in a poem that my witness wrote for this project. So it's titled, "I will listen, be there, receive, feel." For this piece, I was thinking about a few things. One of the things we had talked about was how in their line of work, they work with sex workers on the Downton East Side, and in their line of work, they need to be set up well. They need to be prepared to experience some level of trauma so that they can do their work well, and so that they can know how to pivot and move and know when to lean in and create space for people to share. So I wanted the piece to feel like it's creating a space for people to share their stories. And the other thing I was thinking about was the idea of burden bearing, and how in choosing to be in this line of work means that you will take on the burdens of people in some ways. Not like always. I think there's times when you can have walls up and protect yourself, but there's also times when you take on a little bit of that burden, and how it can definitely wear on you and kind of leave an impression, and can be very difficult, but can also be something that is beautiful and hopeful and leads to healing.
What my witness expressed to me was her encounters with bureaucracy and barriers to how she was able to help her clients, and how it made everything very difficult. So I decided to work, and working with people is a very raw and immediate experience. So I decided to make my work very immediate. I just cut everything out, stood them up as quickly as I could. And on each of these three figures, there is some form of grid or barrier, just to indicate the difficulty that arose for my witness, and the barriers everyone experiences in getting help, or bureaucracy, or anything of that nature. So each one has a different level of barrier. And in this front one you can see it's sort of stitched. So there's also, my witness talked about resilience, and how she had to learn how to look after herself and to maintain her practice as a social worker.
In the first piece, you will see the room setup of my witness. This is her room setup, and she said to me, "I take my seat in the room with my client." She also mentioned in this piece, which I included, the idea of grass greening, that things are always greening, even when things are dark and black. So what I wanted to show here in the first piece, you can lift it up, and there is just an absolute blackness of called the nature of evil, and it's an absolute dullness. So if you look at it just visually, nothing shines. It is absolutely flat, and it says around the edges, these are my witness's words, her own words, the grass greening incongruously on either side. here in the middle of the interim space between piece 1 and piece 2 is my witness reading her poem called Converging Tracks. This piece was meant to be an amalgamation of my own experience with my witness's experience. This is the idea of the person working with trauma needing to be in nature as a way of being able to work with trauma. So I have her in an ocean swim here like this. The last word is her word of the piece, and it says, of grass greening as it always will. So there's this idea of holding a really super optimism, even in working with very hard, dark work.
This piece here is called Color Me Wise, and it is a response to the conversations I had with my witness, who is a person who works with people who have suffered trauma accessing abortion. I was interested in the part of our conversation that dealt with how she herself has developed resilience to hearing about the specific trauma. And it reminded me of the fable of the three wise monkeys. And so I wanted to use the motif of a paper doll. Okay, so a playful item that is like a paper doll, and the gestures of the hands are reminiscent of the hand gestures of the three wise monkeys. But each of these gestures indicates a section of response that my witness uses. The first is the brain, an intellectual response. The second is the heart, an empathetic response. And the third is the gut, which is just that instinctual reaction.
My piece here is called Safe, Not Safe. And my witness did a lot of work with teaching sexual health to children K to 12 and adults with cognitive disabilities. So in a lot of situations, young people are very much worried about whether or not they're safe in a situation, or whether their home is going to be safe, or maybe their home is where the trauma that they're experiencing is coming from. So I created the head of a person that I thought of as a young person with an eyebrow piercing and cheek piercing, and I made a little head. I tried to give her a look of looking slightly anxious, and she's sitting on a little board, which I thought would be like a bit of a shrine or something that takes it out of the everyday. And then next to her is a crumpled up piece of cloth, and I thought it could either be, something that she might throw over her head to hide, or something to wipe away tears, or perhaps even just it being all crumpled might represent the way she personally feels. So I was really trying to think about how people who are experiencing this kind of trauma become hyper vigilant about whether or not they are safe or not. And I was trying to respond to that. And this piece was meant to reflect the way we experienced this process, what we were feeling about. And for me, I was overwhelmingly impressed with the kind of care and compassion that people who deal every day with people who are experiencing violence and trauma, what amazing people they are, what they have to bring of themselves, because they also end up experiencing a vicarious trauma just because they're hearing these terrible stories day after day after day. So I wanted, instead of a war monument or a monument to like famous politicians, I wanted to make a monument to caregivers. So the head is the head of a slightly older woman. I wanted it to look a bit like a classical Greek head that you might find on a statue of Diana, or a mature goddess figure. She's sitting in a bowl. The bowl is wrapped in a cloth which has the words compassion, empathy, love, and care.
I worked with Samantha, who is a person who works with people to help them navigate the legal system. And I came up with the idea of making 2 sort of bags or buckets, however you want to look at them. And the first one, Maze, is about how difficult it is for people, even with her help, to navigate the legal system. I think for many of us, the legal system is just completely opaque, and it's very difficult to understand what you're supposed to do or what you're allowed or what your rights are. So I embroidered this bag with a maze on it that you actually can't get out of if you go around the whole thing. And I stuffed it with shredded paper and stones because I wanted it to seem heavy, like something that's tattered and difficult to carry, and it's the thing she's carrying because she's trying to help people with very limited resources. It's called Agency, and I embroidered it with tools because I thought, what would I like to give people, or what could they use? And these are real tools, a staple gun, a drill, that sort of thing, but they are stand-in. They're metaphoric for things that people might need to make their lives easier or better.
First piece is really as bystanders, which is a group of people standing together, trying to decide whether they're going to help stop something from happening or not. And it really, in my mind, when I was making it, I was thinking about how hard it is for people to make themselves move when they see something that frightens them, and how difficult it is for people to be physically and emotionally uncomfortable and still be productive or active. And I really wanted to demonstrate with these how the sort of ambivalence that comes even when you do something. And that was part of the conversation I had with Claire, who I had been talking to extensively about both of these pieces, and was the person I was partnered with, about how powerful bystanders can be, but how hard it is to get people to feel empowered to be able to do anything. This is called Hard to Hold. This one has actually got images of Claire's actual hands on the sides of the bowl, and inside is something that's both sort of a warming fire and possibly too hot to really hold on to. And what I had talked to Claire about was how difficult it was for her to manage other people's trauma every day, and all the different things that she did for herself in order to make it sort of more comfortable, and how no matter what she did, it weighed heavy. And I imagined her trying to just hold it while it was both something that brought out the most empathy in her that it could, while also being sort of too much.
Really happy with the exhibition, how it went, all the artists and the works. It was pretty amazing. The genesis of this it took about 5 years to come up with an idea for this. We started out, we had a couple of different ideas, and they always got shifted and changed over time. So once we got onto this one, it went pretty smoothly. And it was a lot of fun for me because I got to pick all the artists, and I got to pick all the witnesses. And then the best part was I got to pair them. So it was quite the job to actually figure out who would work best with whom. And I think we did. Every artist said that they were really happy with who they got connected with. So that's good.
part of our partnership grant was that we wanted partners who work in the arts and find ways to express a deeper understanding of what happens. Also, in this case, Rain McKay and Deborah Sloan came to me and said, you know, we want to do this project that brings together witnesses who work with sexual violence survivors and learn from the trauma that those witnesses experience, as well as bring them together with artists who will hear their stories and then reflect on them and create pieces both in terms of what the witnesses have expressed as their trauma and what the artists have expressed. So it's a ripple effect. And thank you for being here. I'll pass this on to Ray.
Well, thank you all for coming in. And a big thank you to Shaheen for funding this. Really big thanks. I'm a sexual abuse survivor myself. So how I came to the project was that I knew for the first part of my healing it was all about me. First it was about everybody else, then it was about me. But what intrigued me as I got older was that I got to see how it was affecting everybody, from my family to my teachers to my community. Whenever I talked about it, who would go back, who would come forward, who would just assume that it was just a normal piece of life. You know, you go through it and deal with it and get on with it, and not acknowledge the hurt that was sort of rippling through. Because looking at people not being able to help me because they didn't know how, or people who try to not help me by not maliciously, just they didn't know what to do. And the reason that we wanted to do it is because we want to start conversations. We want to talk about it so that people recognize and understand the impact that it has, not just on the individual person, but on everybody. So that's all I'm going to say. I get a little emotional. But I would like the artists to come forward, if you would. So Louise, Deb, come on. Rachel, Bettina, Hope. Amy. But thanks to these people here, and Deborah, all of these people, they took the time and the courageous step to listen to the participants, the witnesses, and to translate them in their own way into these fabulous pieces of art. So once again, to the artists.